Okay, so getting back into our coverage over the new 52 Superman, we are technically at the point where we are getting ready to cover Savage Dawn. Now, Savage Dawn was one of the few last crossovers for Superman in the new 52 era. Now, before we are able to jump into that crossover, we have to cover a lot of preludes that lead into the actual crossover. And the reason why, because around this point in DC Comics, Superman had 4 separate titles. You had Superman, Action Comics, you had Batman and Superman, and you had Superman and Wonder Woman. Now, each of those titles were technically used as a way to tell stories about Superman. The thing is though, around this point in the new 52, Superman was depowered. And the reason why, because he gained a new ability known as the solar flare. And when it came to the solar flare, he was able to release a huge amount of energy as a way to attack people around him. Now the problem was though, after he used the solar flare, he would be depowered. His cells had to recharge because with Clark Kent being a solar battery, of course he needs to recharge. And once his cells do recharge, he was back to being Superman. Except the last time he used a solar flare, well, his cells technically never did fully recharge. And so we have a mostly depowered Superman. He lost most of his powers, but not all of them. Now, something else to mention is that around this point, the entire world knew that Clark Kent was Superman. Now, the reason why the entire world found out that Clark Kent was Superman was thanks to Lois Lane. Now, the reason why Lois told the entire world is because of a new bad guy known as Horridor Root. Now, when it comes to Horridor Root, he was just a random new bad guy that had popped up, but the thing was though, when it came to Horridor Root, he had his own organization. And what they did was they would sell people's secret to make money. And so when it came to Clark Kent, they were able to find out that Clark Kent was Superman. And they were going to technically blackmail Superman to do whatever they wanted him to do. And if he said no, then they would tell the entire world that Clark Kent was Superman. And so for some reason, Lois thought, you know what? Why not go ahead and tell the entire world that Clark Kent is Superman so that he can no longer be controlled by Horridor Root? Which honestly, she was right, but wrong. Because the thing is, right after she did that, now you have the entire world kind of going against Clark Kent in a way. Because now they realize that their friend Clark Kent was actually Superman. But at the same time, their hero was trying to be some regular person and he had his own secrets. And so it had different governments wonder if he had other secrets like trying to take over the world. But we do see Clark Kent meeting up with another character known as Cortessa. Now, when it comes to Cortessa, we met her in the very beginning of the Truth era, and she used to work for Horridor Root. Now, she has the ability to talk to machines and have machines do whatever she wants them to do. Either way, she was able to find some more information about Horridor Root. And apparently right now, they have bought out some random company over in Oakland, California. And so it's her telling Clark, if you're still trying to take down Horridor Root, I say go over there and see if you're able to find any kind of information that could take them down. Now, after you have Clark agree, Lois Lane walks in. Now, the reason why, because Lois is actually close friends with Cortessa now at this point, but Clark still does not trust Lois because, again, Lois told the entire world that he was Superman. And so as soon as she walks into the diner, Clark just leaves instantly, like, nope, I'm out, bye, and he heads for Oakland, California. And so you're now probably wondering, how in the world will Clark Kent get over to Oakland, California if most of his powers are gone now? Because remember, he's not completely depowered, but he is mostly depowered. And so he did lose his super flight, and he also lost his super speed. And so unfortunately, he does have to get a ride on a plane, except not legally. He does it illegally by riding on top of a plane that heads over to Oakland, California. Now, once he does arrive, he begins to kind of walk around the building that belongs to Horridor Root, the company that they had just recently purchased. Now, while he is walking around, he is able to find a secret base that tells him, okay, this is just another base that belongs to Horridor Root. Now, when it comes to Horridor Root, the way they usually work is that they use technology as a way to gather secrets of different people to then sell those secrets to make money. And so even though Clark Kent thought that he was being stealthy, there were cameras around the building. There were cameras all over Oakland, California. They saw him coming a mile away. And so yes, even though they let him inside their secret base, they wanted that to happen, to show him that no matter what you do, we always know what you're gonna do. We know all your moves so easily. But right after Superman has been confronted, you didn't have Horridor Root say, hey, you know what? Because you're here, you're gonna fight against someone I know, and his name is Apolaki. Now, Apolaki is actually the sun god to the Philippines mythos. And the question is right now, how in the world did Horridor Root be able to grab a sun god and now force the sun god to fight against Superman? Now, if Superman was completely repowered up again, he would be able to actually defeat Apolaki so easily. The problem is though, again, Superman has been depowered mostly, and so unfortunately it's not going to be an easy battle for him, and it does last for a few pages. But at the end of the fight, you do have Superman being able to actually defeat Apolaki. Now, once he does, we kind of find out that this was not the real Apolaki at all, that it seems to be some kind of clone of the sun god that belongs to the culture of the Philippines. And so now you have Clark wondering, how in the world was Horridor Root able to make clones of people? But on top of that, is he trying to make a clone of Superman for unknown reasons? There are so many questions left unanswered. Either way, you didn't have Clark ask one of the bystanders if they knew anything about Apolaki, because apparently Apolaki was a well-known person in Oakland, California. Now, you do have the guy tell Clark, yeah, the reason why I know him so well because he is the owner of a house known as 1001 House. If you head over there, you may be able to learn more about Apolaki at that house. And so Clark leaves to go over to 1001 House. Now, once you have Clark arrive at the 1001 House, he does see a lot of people going inside the place. Now, the thing is though, he cannot get inside. And the reason why, because they do not want to allow him inside because he is Clark Kent. The entire world knows that he is Superman, and no matter where he goes, trouble always followed. And so they're afraid with the idea of him being here, trouble might follow him here and bring problems for them and him as well. And so they say, no, you may not go inside. Now, Clark does use his powers as a way to find a back entrance. Now, once he is inside, he comes to find out that this place, the 1001 House, is actually an underground arena. Now, here's the thing, because it is a tad bit different, because this is a underground arena where you have different gods of different cultures coming here as a way to fight against each other. But while they're fighting against each other, they're telling their stories so that the world will not forget who they are. Now we kind of find out that the announcer of this show, her name is, and I'm going to mispronounce her name, but I did try my best to do some research on each of these characters. But when it comes to the announcer of this arena, her name is Shahrazad, and I really hope I announced that correctly. Now, when it comes to her whole mythology, she actually belongs to the Middle Eastern culture, where she was well known for being a storyteller. Not really a god, but more of a famous storyteller. And here she is right now, being that storyteller, being an announcer who's right now saying, hey guys, welcome to another myth battle. We're going to see different gods of different cultures fight against each other as a way to tell their stories, so the world will not forget who they are. And we kind of find out that one of the fighters of this next battle here in the myth arena is actually a character known as Hamasu. Now, when it comes to Hamasu, he is actually another sun god, just like Apolaki. The only difference is that Hamasu belongs to the Korean culture. Now, with that being said though, the only reason why he's in this battle right now, because Apolaki is not here. And so somebody had to step in and take his place, which is Hamasu. Now, here comes another thing, because Hamasu is fighting against another character known as Mayari. Now, when it comes to Mayari, she is actually the sister to Apolaki. And when it comes to their folktale, when Apolaki and Mayari's father died, they fought for a long time over the idea of who could be the ruler of the earth. But after many years of fighting, they finally said, you know what, let's not fight anymore and try to figure out how can we share the ability to rule over the earth. And so when it came to Apolaki, he ruled the day, being the sun god. And when it came to Mayari, she ruled the night as the moon god. And so that is how they were able to kind of work together to be rulers of the earth. Either way, when it comes to their myth battle, Apolaki was supposed to fight against his sister as a way to retell their story. Unfortunately, he is not here, and so Hamasu had to step in. Now, when it comes to Clark Kent, he does not know all the different myths across the world. And so he believed that this is an actual arena, and right now they're going to fight to the death. And so you have Clark jump in and try to calm everybody down. Now, while doing that, you then have everybody tell him, dude, this is all made up. Technically, we're doing this as a way to share our stories with other people across the world. And so you didn't have our hero go to the backstage to talk to all these different characters that he had just met. Now, you do have Clark Kent tell the brand new cast of characters that what happened to their brother Apolaki, that earlier when he fought against Apolaki and he was able to defeat him, well, he turned into a pile of sand, which told Clark that what he fought against was not the real Apolaki, that in reality it was just some random clone. Now, the thing is though, he came to tell them, hey, your brother is dead or possibly dead. But at the same time, I came here looking for clues to figure out what happened to your brother. Now, when it comes to our new cast of characters, they don't care that their brother Apolaki had died. And the reason why? Because he is a god. Gods always die, but they always come back to life again as long as there's someone on the earth who is praying for them. And so with that being said, sooner or later, Apolaki will come back to life again. Maybe tomorrow, next week, next month, a decade, who knows? Either way, they're not worried. But then they offer Clark to stay. And the reason why? Because Clark is no longer a god. When he was fully powered, he was technically a god. He was a powerful being. But now he is just a regular guy with super strength. And so you have our new cast of characters here say, why not stay here? You know, stay here and fight in our arena. But at the same time, you'll be able to tell your story so that your story gets out there so the entire world can get to know the real you. And for Clark, he wants to say no at first because again, he'll be fighting for money. But then he says, you know what? No. I should stay here. I am looking for a new start, a new home. I'm going to leave Metropolis and I'm going to stay in Oakland, California. Now, as we dive into the second chapter, we see that Jimmy and Cortessa are about to head over to Oakland, California. And the reason why, because it has been weeks since the ending of the first chapter in the beginning of this chapter. And so right now, no one has seen Clark Kent around Metropolis, but there have been a lot of word that Clark Kent is over in Oakland, California. And so you have our two heroes say, hey, I just saw him on security cameras and it showed that he was riding a plane that was heading towards Oakland. we should head there now to see what in the world he is up to over there. But getting back over to Superman, we do see him right now just fighting in the arena. Now, while fighting in this arena, he is able to tell his story. The whole idea that he was sent away from Krypton as a way to survive, to be the sole survivor of Krypton. And then he crashed on Earth, he was found by the Kents, and he was raised by them. He learned a lot by them, but then became a hero known as Superman, who was trying to bring hope to this world. Like they're trying to tell his entire story at this actual arena, like the other gods in this arena. Now, while you have them doing this, at the end of his fight, Clark wants to go home and just rest up. Like, yes, he is trying to make a new life here in Oakland, California, but at the same time, he still wants to be left alone. Now, while he is leaving, he is stopped by Hormasu. Remember, the sun god to the Korean culture. And he said, listen, man, you and I gotta talk. We got some unfinished business. And so then we see that Jimmy and Cortessa have both arrived in Oakland, California. Now, before they begin to try to look for Clark Kent, you have the two of them say, hey, we should try to go get something to eat. Now, when they're trying to get something to eat, well, then Jimmy has this flashback to the point where him and Clark were out to eat together. And while they were eating with each other, we can tell that this was when Jimmy had no idea that Clark was Superman. But on top of that, though, you had Clark try to deal with a problem in Metropolis while still trying to eat with Jimmy. And so when Jimmy turned around to see Superman fighting against, well, some huge robot, Clark will use his super speed to just rush back over before Jimmy is able to turn around and realize that Clark had disappeared. And so it's Jimmy saying, oh my God, even back then, I should have realized that Clark Kent was Superman. And so then we jump over to Hormasu, and you have Hormasu take Superman to a nearby bar. Now, when it comes to this bar, it's really more of a meetup spot. And what I mean by that is you have these different kind of myth characters from different cultures coming here to hang out at this bar, to meet each other, and sometimes to make friends, and sometimes to make some you-know-what kind of buddies. Either way, when it comes to this bar, it's a hangout spot. And for Hormasu, he believes that with Clark being here in Oakland for a good amount of time, multiple weeks, he feels like Clark is a close friend. And he's very upset about the idea that this is their first time hanging out with one another. Except when it comes to Clark, he said, listen, man, I have been trying my best to figure out what happened to your friend Apalaki. And so you have Hormasu say, you know what? When it came to Apalaki, he was well known at this bar as being somebody who always went home with some kind of random lady. And matter of fact, those two right there are from his past. They might know what happened to Apalaki. And so you have Clark talk to them. Now, while they are talking, you have one of the ladies mention that Apalaki did go home with another woman, and her name was Yuri. Now, as soon as Clark hears that name, he's all like, huh, you said Yuri, right? And she's here in this town, right? Okay, you know, where does she live? Because I kind of want to pay her a visit. And while you have Superman and Hormasu leave the bar, they run into Cortessa and Jimmy. Now, this is where we come to find out why Jimmy wants Clark back in Metropolis. And the reason why? Because thanks to people like Perry White and his company, The Daily Planet, and other, news companies, they're all right now spreading lies about Clark Kent, making it seem like he was a horrible person. And so because of that, it's Jimmy saying, you have to come back to Metropolis. And the reason why? To prove them wrong. And matter of fact, I'm trying to use my blog and write different articles to prove that you're not a bad person, that in reality, you are a good person. But you have Clark say, Jimmy, stop. Like, dude, no matter what you do, nothing is going to change. The world now hates me because I held a secret from them. And unfortunately, we have to move on. Now, with all that being said, Jimmy finds out that Clark is now fighting for money in the arena. And for Jimmy, that's a huge no-no for Clark. Like, how dare you, someone who's supposed to be a great person and stand for so many great things, and here you are now in Oakland fighting for money in an arena. Horrible, man, horrible. And so right now, you have Jimmy say, I'm disappointed in you. But then we see Clark being able to find Yuri. Now, once he is able to find Yuri, it then leads into a battle between the two of them. Now, when it comes to Clark, he's able to find out that Yuri has been watching him this entire time. Now, for Clark, he's wondering, why in the world were you guys watching me for? Now, for Clark, he's thinking that, wait, I get it. You were waiting for the right time to kill me off and then make a clone of me like you did to Abalaki, because he still believes that Abalaki was killed off so that Hordor Root and Hordor, the organization, would be able to make a clone of Abalaki. But you have Yuri say, no, we don't have to kill you to make a clone of you. And we kind of find out that apparently Hordor Root and Hordor were able to make a clone of Superman. The only difference is this Clark right here has all the powers of Superman. He is not depowered at all. Well, actually a tad bit. And the reason why I'm saying that, because this Superman could be technically somewhat depowered because he's not actually a solar battery like Clark Kent is, the real Clark Kent. Either way, you do have our two characters fight against each other. Now, for our hero Clark, it's not going to be an easy battle. He is fighting against himself with all the powers he used to have. And so he is getting his butt whooped. But while the fight goes on, you have Clark being able to find different ways to defeat his clone, except when it came to his clone using his heat vision right before it was finished off, well, Clark finds out that he was followed to the base of Yuri. And the person, or really the people that had followed him, was Jimmy and Cortessa. And so when it came to the clone using their heat vision, it did miss Clark, but it hit Jimmy. And so now we're left to believe that Jimmy is going to die. But then right after that, you didn't have Hordor Root appear on the computer to make fun of Clark Kent for failing to protect his friends. And so you have Hordor Root said, you know, I remember when I first popped up and I technically kind of helped make Lois tell the entire world that you were Superman. You told the entire world to leave your loved ones alone. If they did not, you were going to make them pay. Well, here we are now. I was able to hurt Jimmy, and what are you going to do about that, Clark? Are you going to make me pay for hurting your friends? It's right now just Hordor Root just enjoying the moment with the idea of Clark holding what could be soon his dead friend. And so now the question is Clark going to make Hordor Root pay? And so as we jump into the final chapter for today's storyline, we pick up with Superman fighting against his clone, while you have Cortessa trying her best to get Jimmy out of there. Now, Yuri is there as well, and she does try to stop Cortessa from getting away with Jimmy, but you have Cortessa being able to use her abilities to talk to machines as a way to stop Yuri, but to also get Jimmy out of there. Now, when it comes to Superman, he is able to deal with his clone once and for all, and matter of fact, his clone dies, and so that right there should no longer be a major problem. But either way, it's now Superman realizing that sooner or later he needs to find out who is Hordor Root, and when he does, he needs to make sure that he is finally stopped. And so then we see Clark and Cortessa being able to take Jimmy to a nearby hospital. Now, once they do that, you do have Clark realize that it's kind of dangerous for his loved ones to be around him, because now when it comes to his secret identity being out there for the entire world, that means you're going to have so many different bad guys try their best to get to one of his loved ones as a way to get to him. But this is Clark saying it's time for him to go ahead and to finally get rid of Hordor Root once and for all. Now, you do have Clark go back to the arena, and the reason why? Because he does plan on leaving once and for all. Except before he does leave, he does ask his new friends, can they help him out with one last thing? And that last thing is to bring down Horridor Root, and they are down to help out. And matter of fact, while you have Clark in the middle of one big fight, that is when Horridor Root appears. Now, when he does appear, this is Horridor Root trying to get rid of Clark once and for all, except Clark asked one of his friends to put a shield around the actual arena. And the reason why? Because when it came to Horridor Root, Clark found out this has to be some kind of AI person. And the reason why? Because he was able to transfer his mind into other people as long as they were wearing one of his masks. Horridor Root is not a real person at all. And with that being said, Clark says the shield around them prevents Horridor Root to be able to transfer his mind somewhere else to get away. And so this is going to be their final battle. And so once you have Clark being able to actually defeat Horridor Root, you then have Cortessa show off her new invention. Now, when it comes to her new invention, what it can do is that it's technically a hard drive, but it's going to download the actual AI system of Horridor Root and keep it trapped inside the actual hard drive. There's no way that this AI system should be able to actually escape. Now, we also have to remember, when it came to Horridor Root, with it being an AI computer system and being able to transfer his mind to other people as long as they were wearing one of his masks, that means the person that Clark was just fighting against was some other innocent person that was being controlled by Horridor Root. And we come to find out it was Jimmy, that apparently while he was being healed up at the hospital, well, Horridor Root and his fellow followers grabbed Jimmy to use him as a way to make Clark actually kill him off. Another bad trick on Horridor Root to use on Clark Kent. Either way, it didn't work because Clark realized that he was choking out Jimmy. After realizing that, you have him pull off the mask and Jimmy is a-okay. Now, we do see Clark Kent and Cortessa take over the hard drive over to Mr. Terrific. Now, when it comes to Mr. Terrific, he's well known in DC Comics as one of the smartest people on the planet. Now, here's the thing. He is great with technology. And so it's Clark saying, I need you to lock up this hard drive. Now, for Mr. Terrific, he says, okay, I don't get it. Why? It's just some random AI. It's some random crazy thing that could possibly go crazy, but at the same time, it seems like you guys have it handled. I don't see the big deal. And you have Clark say, it's not an AI system. It's actually a somebody. And that is very important. And you see why here in a moment. And this is where we dive into the origin of Horridor Root, thanks to Jimmy Olsen. Because remember, Jimmy did wear a mask that was made by Horridor Root. While he was wearing that mask, he was able to dive into the mind of the AI system to learn the origin of Horridor Root, where we come to find out that when it came to Horridor Root, there was a real person, a live human being. Now, unfortunately, we could not learn his name, but this guy believed that he was the son of Vandal Savage. The problem was, when Savage met this guy, he said, there's no way you're my son, you look weak. And the reason why, because when it came to this person, his body was shutting down on him. Sooner or later, it would completely shut down on him, thanks to some kind of rare disease. And so to Savage, that means this guy is not worthy to be called the son of Vandal Savage. And so when it came to the human version of Horridor Root, he wanted to prove that he was worthy for the love of his father. And so what he did was he created a cyborg, a very powerful cyborg, but he also copied his mind and put that mind into the body of the cyborg. He made a cyborg version of himself, an AI version of himself that is able to basically jump around to other people as long they're wearing the mask, but then come back to its original body. Now, the thing was, he didn't tell the cyborg, you're not me, but you are me. But I'm going to use you as a way to prove to my father that I am worthy. The problem was, though, the cyborg went ahead and killed off the human version of Horridor Root to say, no, I'm worthy for our father, not you, because I'm you, but even better. Now, to end today's storyline, we do pick up with Mr. Terrific one more time, who is watching over the hard drive that is controlling or containing the AI version of Horridor Root, except that is when his base is attacked by Vandal Savage. Yes, you heard that right. Vandal Savage did attack the base to be able to grab the actual AI computer system. But the thing is, though, we have no idea what Savage is trying to do, because in our last few videos, we do realize that he is the main bad guy for Savage Dawn. The problem is, though, we have no idea what this guy is cooking up right now that could affect Superman down the road. But either way, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, see y'all next time. Later.